our next session is about attracting talents in a world of remote work with Mr. Alain Bijani, CEO of Majid Al Futtaim Group. Please welcome him with me. Thank you. Welcome. Thank you for being with us. So remote work.
Thank you for having me.
Remote work and new world. How do you feel about all these changes?
Well, I feel good. I think we all feel good about the changes. We feel that we are all much more empowered, which I think is very important. There is a big shift that happened, at least in the past 2 years, between the word pre-COVID and the word today. So we all saw that we are able to do a lot of things that we never saw possible before, and we are not prepared for. I think the big thing that we have is now we also have a minister for remote work, His Excellency Omar Al-Ulama, who's here with us today. So I speak under his authority, and I hope he's not going to be frowning upon me if I say something that's out of line. Because I know that he figured it out. So now we need to basically think it through ourselves.
But not all companies are welcoming those changes. Even in an international scale, we found, for example, the Netflix CEO said this is completely negative. We say that Twitter embraced it 100%. So why some companies are still afraid of this change?
Because, as you said, it is change. And, you know, human beings don't like change. We all like change when we are forced, when it's forced upon us. But making the decision to change is always difficult. This is why in the pre-COVID, the digital world, moving towards remote working, using, I don't know if people remember, but you know, we all now talk about Zoom, about Teams, etc. But before that, they used to have Skype. So having a meeting on Skype was not the normal. It was abnormal to have a meeting on Skype. Some people used to do it more than others, and then we were forced to change. We had no choice. So when we as human beings are forced to change, we actually show an ability to adapt. And our adaptability is much bigger than what we think it is. This is how, in the early days of 2020, in March 2020, in the span of 10 days, we moved from a fully, I would say, traditional way of communication to a fully digital way of communication, almost seamlessly without disruption. People were not ready, organizations were not ready, but everyone knew that this needed to be done and happened. Of course, this is not all upside. I think the examples you mentioned about Twitter or Netflix or others, some organizations decided maybe to go a bit too fast in terms of going 100% remotely. Some organizations started to see the impact on their organization culture, the impact on their productivity at times, or basically there was an issue in terms of calibrating the expectations between what the organization expects and what's actually happening. But what I want to tell you is, I am of the view that we should, as much as we can, give people flexibility. Similarly to how we are giving people flexibility on the customer side, for example, by really accepting that we live in an omni-channel world, in a phygital world, where it's physical and digital basically come together seamlessly. I think on the work side, people need to be flexible. We need to give our people the ability to work from anywhere. But at the same time, we have to keep an eye on the organization culture. We have to modernize, adapt to the new reality.
How so? Especially that you have someone who has his office at home, maybe far from your city or even now from your country.
Yes. Well, there is a number of things. One is people want to work at home or elsewhere when it suits them. They also want to interact with other people, with people that they like, and people that actually are member of the same culture they want to be part of. So every individual has this need to meet some other people in person. An organization that sees that its people do not need anymore to meet in person, do not want to come to the office from time to time, do not want to basically interact as much as others, has a bigger organizational issue that they should tackle. And I think similarly to the issue of the future of work related to, the future of retail or the future of our world, this is another situation where technology has brought in a lot of solutions But the technology is not going to replace the basics of what good relationships means of organization culture. And companies have to adapt fast enough in order to take into account the new means of interaction between people in order to shape their organization culture. This may not be something that's obvious because, as you know, companies typically take more time to move than individuals do. So typically, individuals move at individual level the faster, then companies move, then markets move. And this is something that we are seeing. I think we're going to see that for the coming 2 to 3 years before people start to find basically their feet in terms of what is the best way to preserve your organization culture, but also to make sure that you have a workforce that's productive, that is engaged, and that feels empowered.
But as the CEO, how you manage to build culture of the company and also a teamwork spirit remotely?
So 2 things. One is that we have seen in 2020, where we're working fully remotely, that this did not disrupt teamwork. Actually, people work together better during the distress of the early days of COVID than actually they used to work with each other a month ago or 2 months ago. Because there was two things that happened. One is the sense of urgency. And 2, the ability to actually be connected almost 24/7.
Yeah.
This was helpful. But what's important in this is the fact that people, when they felt that there was, I would say, a burning platform where there was a good reason to actually be together, be totally focused, work together, they actually came together to do the right thing. We actually navigated a world that was extremely, extremely challenging, difficult, and uncertain with new technologies, new ways of working, without being trained for it. So what does this tell us? It tells us that when you have the right purpose, when people find the right purpose, when organizations are able to articulate their purpose and rally people around them, people do not need more than that to actually come together and work. People make do with whatever they have. Even if they're unable to get to the office, they will work together. Even if they are unable to meet in person, they will work together. Yeah. So today we have more ways of working, which is actually a source of enrichment. We have more ways to actually I would say, expand our workforce and our talent pool. Today at Majid Al Futtaim, we are a company that is based in Dubai. Our head office is in Dubai. We have 45,000 people across the region. And we have also a lot of mappers that are scattered around the world that actually work from wherever they are. They work from Europe, they work from the US, they work from Asia. And basically it works very, very well. Of course, they need to come in from time to time, once a month, once every few weeks, to come in, spend 3, 4, 5 days meeting people, building bonds, etc., etc. And we have to be more, I would say, intentional about it. We have to be more proactive about it. We have to facilitate that to our people. But we are able today to hire people from across the world without actually having to uproot them to move from one way or the other. And that for me is a fantastic source of enrichment. It's a great source of talent. And we are able finally to all of us, any organization, whether it's public or private, whether it's about cultural arts, artistic, or actually technology or anything else, to benefit from the global pool of talent.
There is a direct relationship between talents or competition to getting talents and flexibility at work now as a strategy.
I wouldn't say there is competition. I think flexibility allows
competition between companies,
Yes. I mean, the war on talent is real. I think the only thing that matters going forward is talent. As an organization, no matter how smart you are, there's someone that's smarter than you. No matter how rich you are, how much money you have, either you have or have access to, there is someone that has more than you. No matter how strategic you are, there are other strategies that will disrupt you. The only thing that matters, no matter how technologically advanced you are, someone else will disrupt you. Every company, every pioneering company, every global leader was disrupted at some point in time. And the only reason why everyone was disrupted at some point in time is because they got to a point where their talent was not the best talent they can have, and someone else was able to attract talent. And that attraction of talent to others did not happen because others had more money, did not happen because others were smarter, did not happen because others had more benefits. it only happened because others were more interesting. Good talent wants to do interesting work. Good talent wants to be able to work leisurely. They want to work at their pace. They want to work where they can. They want to have the flexibility. They want to be trusted and empowered. Organizations that become bureaucratic, organizations that become, it's all about the organization and not anymore about what's in it for the individual's development, for the people, start to lose interest in people's eyes. People start to say, why am I going to work for this company? There is something else that's much more interesting for me. There is a purpose that actually talks to me, that actually makes me want to wake up in the morning. And this has always been the case 10 years ago, and will be the case 50 years ago. People want to do things that are interesting, things that matter to them. So this is why, more than ever, it's about purpose. And the only companies that will win the war on talent are those who have a very clear purpose, and those who have the ability and the willingness to do what it takes to be flexible in order to be able to actually accommodate people at their best, not put people in a context where they are at their worst. And I want to tell the audience that working from anywhere, remote working, is a magnificent way to leverage talent. Because we get people to be at their best. When people want to work from home, whatever, people want to go for a 1 week of vacation somewhere and want to spend another week or two working from there, accept it, promote it, encourage it.
Doesn't propose at the same time logistics or legal challenges, for example, insurance-wise, retirement-wise?
It does.
Which labor law, this country or the other country where he lives?
So
how you solve it?
It does, and I think governments have a very important role to play in order to allow that. As always, governments' legislation comes after. The biggest problem when we try to actually have legislation to allow things to do, what we need, and I think what made us who we are here in Dubai and in the UAE, is the fact that we do not need a legislation for everything. Everything is allowed except what's not allowed. So legislation should also always be there by exception, not the rule. The mindset that we have, what made us who we are and what will make us who we will be, is our ability to allow for creativity, allow for people to actually do what they want, and not to actually pin them down with unnecessarily bureaucracy and legislation. In this case, working a week or 2 weeks from any country is not a problem. This being said, being able to hire talent globally, and the talent being based, for example, in Norway or in London or in Bangalore or in New York or in Beirut or in whatever, or in Oslo or whatever you want, will require from governments, I think this is something that's becoming more important, a legislation in order to deal with tax-related issues. Because you have taxes that needs to be paid, and then when people get income in certain country where they are based in that country, it has certain means. How do you do with regard to, for example, labor laws and other things? But I give you an example. The UAE has introduced very, I would say, progressive laws that actually reflect the true mindset of the UAE. And this is, for example, people living in this country today can live on in relation to certain issues the way they live in their own country, marital status, for example, or other things. We respect other people's cultures, other people's beliefs, other people's habits, and we tolerate that amongst us. We need the same approach regarding the future of work. We need to allow people to be wherever they are and to work from wherever they are. And of course, this is where, in my opinion, there is some legal frameworks that needs to be put in place to facilitate that.
But all jobs are open to get or to be like remotely, working remotely? What are the main domains right now that can, and where is a lot of talents and can work remotely from all over the world, anywhere?
So for example, I think my approach to this is very simple. All jobs can work remotely except those who cannot work remotely. Typically, what people approach is, no one can work remotely except those who can work remotely. And that's a very different change. We have with us here Will I Am, the one and only Will I Am. Will I Am job, until now, could not be done remotely. He needed to be here in order to actually have a concert. Today he can have a concert in the metaverse, and he can have people enjoying his music, enjoying his art from all over the world.
Yeah.
So this is something that actually could not happen 5 years ago. Suddenly the global audience is different. Now let's bring it back to our jobs.
Yeah.
Our jobs, every job can be done remotely, except the ones that require human interaction. If you are, for example, let's say a shop attendant, you need to be on the shop floor because it requires a certain human interaction. For certain medical profession that actually requires human intervention, you need to be there. So you always have to think, any role that does not require human intervention, in person connectivity, is a job that theoretically and practically can be done remotely. Then the question becomes, can it be done remotely all the time, or should it be done in person from time to time?
In a hybrid way.
Exactly. This is for companies and individuals to assess based on the strengths of the organization culture and their need to come and bond together. I can tell you, I don't know any of our 47,000 employees who want to work remotely 100%. It's not true. We pose a dilemma sometimes that actually doesn't exist. People want to come to the office, but the role of the office changed.
Yeah.
Going to the office meant in the past, we go to office to work. We wake up in the morning, we go to the office, this is where we work.
Yeah.
Now we go to the office to meet others. We go to the office to have meaningful
For the human
interactions.
touch.
Exactly. But we work from anywhere.
Yeah.
We don't need to be in the office to work. So there is a new role for the office space. We could have attended the World Government Summit remotely.
Yes.
I mean, we're blessed to have all this audience today here and in the past days. And this is because people want to be together. No one was forced to come here. People can, watch us remotely and they would get the same content. But people want the experience. So the reality is, let's not make it too complex, because it's actually much simpler. We are all individuals that have common sense. And we feel when we can work remotely and when we need to come in. And this approach of policing the workforce, in my view, is wrong. People have had to breed them, and we should respect people's freedom, their field, their needs, their wants, and we should facilitate that.
But sometimes people complain, or some people, they like this, to embrace this new change, but they're afraid that some companies may tend to use them, in a way that they are 24/7 available. They need to be, because they have their computer, home office on the computer, so they need to be ready at any time. How to keep also the employees or the talents in the company right?
So look, the simple answer is the following. These companies who actually will abuse people because they have a screen next to them and the camera, people shouldn't worry about them. They're not going to be here in a certain time. It's a matter of time until these companies disappear. People are not going to basically, people cannot anymore allow or accept for themselves to be bullied into work. This doesn't exist anymore. And if it exists, it's actually very fastly diminishing. They will lose competitiveness, people will move on, do something else, and they'll find themselves uncompetitive and unable to continue. So this is a recipe for disaster. Now, on the other side, there is a work-life balance that people want. You have to remember, when someone is at one end of the camera, there's someone else at the other end of the camera.
Yeah.
So if you are working on your own homework, on your own, at your own leisurely time, that's your decision. You have to find your own work-life balance. You have to be able, you are mature enough, you want to be empowered. That's your thing. To see, you prefer to work between 3 a.m. and 7 a.m. in the morning, you want to work during the day, you want to work whatever. This is your choice. But at the end of the day, when someone is meeting with someone, there are two people meeting. If someone doesn't want to be there, the other one cannot be meeting on his or her own. So this is I would say, this is a two-way street between the company and the team members. And I think with time, this is also becoming more mature. People are understanding the importance of being kind of zoomed out. People want more time for themselves, but they also want to use the time that used to be spent on, I would say, commodity time of things. For example, travel time or moving from one place to another to do meeting to whatever. This can be used sometimes in a more efficient way, and people enjoy it.
You think at this point governments and lawmakers should interfere to organize it?
Governments and lawmakers should never interfere. This is the principle. The governments and lawmakers should never interfere.
Why?
Unless they have to. Because what makes the world the way it is actually free enterprise and the ability for people to actually do what they believe is right. Government and lawmakers should always interfere by exception when there is a need, when there is an imbalance in a relationship. And the government should make sure that basically all constituencies of society are being protected or are being afforded their rights in a proper way. So we should also always look at that. Intervention, okay, regulation should be by exception, not as the standard.
Mr. Alan Bijani, CEO of Majid Al Futtaim Group. Thank you
Thank
so
you very
much
much. Thank you for
being
having me.
with us. And thank you as well. Thank you.